All right. Good morning, everybody. I hope your Monday's off to an awesome start. We are ready to take care of you between now and 8 o'clock this morning. Early on a Monday. That's nobody's favorite time of the day. It's a decision, though. And my co-host for the morning will tell you as much. He made the decision to, what's this fast you're on, George?
72-hour water fast.
72-hour water fast. This, of course, George Meany. If you don't know him already, then where the hell have you been? George has been with us for 10 years as a client, a sponsor, a friend, and someone who always brings really cool and useful and interesting stuff to the show. So we decided this morning, because Leanne Mole is absent again, this time due to her accident. Did you hear what happened to her?
No.
She got her fingers caught in a door hinge.
No.
Oh, yeah. They blew. It looks terrible. I'm not even going to show you the pictures because it'll put people off of their breakfast this morning or their coffee or whatever.
I mean, the leverage on a door hinge.
Listen, that woman, I don't know, but she seems to be like, the stories that she has accumulated in her 40-something years, it's just like 2 lifetimes couldn't fit all those stories in. She's insane. So Leanne is not here this morning. She will be back next week. And it's also the last week of May, and it's the last week before the elections. Well, it's the last Monday before the elections. The old people and the people who have work to do on election day will be voting tomorrow. And I think today as well. I think there's a special, it starts today. Did you watch the president's announcement last night?
No.
Okay, I'll admit I had it on the background. I was just curious. I thought maybe he's going to call off the election. Maybe there's some kind of last-minute skullduggery going on, but there was none of that. So if you missed it, you missed nothing. All he was saying was like, please don't kill each other at the polls.
Fellow South Africans.
Yeah. It was completely stupid and unnecessary. But I did see it, and I'll vouch for you. You don't need to pay attention to it if you didn't. If you missed it yesterday, that's all good. I hope you had a good weekend and hopefully got some rest in. Oh, I had the laziest Saturday and Sunday. Proper lazy days. I did get to gym on both days, but otherwise I did nothing.
Yeah,
Slept a lot.
Pretty much nothing yesterday. But
Yeah. Ate a lot. It was just, I felt this morning, you're going to have to work hard this week. You know?
Yeah.
That's a weekend.
Yeah, that's a proper.
And yours, you say you
weekend. I just did. Yeah, yesterday I did pretty much hardly anything.
Nice.
Watched. I'll try to watch the Grand Prix, and then my DSTV decoder gave hassles.
Of course, you would be watching the Grand Prix. I heard there was a big crash.
Yes, Red Bull crashed out in the first lap.
But like monster.
Proper.
And then
four wheels were off.
I saw a thing on social media. You see, again, I know nothing about Formula One, but this is the amazing thing about living in 2024 is that you get just enough of an update for you to be able to have a conversation about this. And I saw that one of the cars stopped just inside the tunnel, and the reaction time on these guys is just insane. Like they coming around the corner and they just see this car and they're like straight out of the way.
Yeah,
and you're like, I don't know if ordinary us, like we wouldn't be able to do that.
That's proper fighter pilot reaction.
It's incredible, right?
Because going into that tunnel, I think they're doing something like 100 something miles an hour. By the time they leave the tunnel, they're at almost 190 miles an hour, which is very fast.
Do people expect you, because you're the CEO of Auto Trader, which is the largest car selling market in South Africa? Just got to say that. Like, it's the biggest website for anyone who wants to buy a car, and people go on there, people like me, and they just shop around even though they're not really buying. But even though you're the CEO of Auto Trader, you don't watch Formula One like some of these people who are complete fanatics, but you're expected to know everything, right? Because they think, well, George knows everything about cars, so he'll know everything about Formula One.
Well, you talk like that. I often get friends and acquaintances when something goes wrong with their car. I'm expected to know the answer.
Yeah, George, my car's making a funny sound. What are you going to do? What do you suggest? You go like open the bonnet, just look to the right there. There's a thing there. Just tap that with your spanner. I'd give them shit advice if I were you. I'd like, just because if you do it once, they'll leave you alone, right?
Yeah, well, if I give them the wrong advice, it's going to go pear-shaped, right? I don't want to put anybody's life in danger.
Put oil into that thing that says water.
I think water into the thing that says oil is worse.
Oh man, I met this dude the other day, and I thought of you. He's running a little business in Midrand where he does detailing on cars.
It's a big thing now.
It's amazing, right? And everybody wants to personalize. If you think about it, people, they personalize their phones, they personalize their wardrobe, they personalize their house. Obviously, a lot of those things you'd say, well, duh, why would I have a copy and paste version of all that stuff in my life? But the car thing, most people for the longest time just bought the car off the production line and didn't do anything to it. And most cars, I mean, especially like the Ubers that you'll drive now, are exactly like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the car detailing is a big thing, and it's
huge business.
Huge business. Many people change the color of their cars; they wrap the entire thing.
Yeah. And you get this this incredible like ceramic paint stuff that they put on now, where the water just drips off.
Yeah,
like this guy was telling me he can do this for me on my car, and I was like, well, how much is it? And then he gave me a quote, and it's not like
it's not cheap.
But it's not like disgusting either. I didn't expect to have to like remortgage the house, you know, and I had no idea what I was in for there. But it's amazing to me that this is, even in this economy, there are enough people who are doing that stuff to their cars. And it's not just rich people, by the way. It's like people who really love their cars.
Yeah.
They want to have like a different badge on it, or they want to have a different color to everyone else, or they want to have like a line here that nobody else has, or maybe the rims must do this instead of that. It's like, pretty wild.
Personalizing your life, right?
Yeah. But again, I mean, I was listening to a podcast the other day about 60s fashion, which is, I mean, you wouldn't expect to find me listening to a podcast on 60s fashion. But this was amazing because it's more of a history thing. And they were talking about how up to the 1960s, people didn't spend money on clothes. We don't. Now you think, well, obviously people spend money on clothes. Most people, rich, poor, old, young, they all spend money on clothes, right? And we think of, well, you'll go and buy 2 or 3 T-shirts or whatever. That was never a thing. Like back before the 60s, men had 3 or 4 shirts. They would wear them until they were threadbare. They'd have maybe a suit or 2, and they'd wear that for most of their working life. Seriously, you don't think about this is how
that's true.
They'd have one big overcoat which would cost an absolute fortune, and that they'd probably pass on to their kids because it would be made of such thick fabric, and it would be such a like utilitarian thing. Only from the 60s did people start personalizing fashion and start buying disposable stuff and, you know, like colorful stuff. There were no colors.
The disposable is the thing. I've got 2 jackets from my late dad.
Oh yeah.
One is a leather jacket, but it's I'll wear it one day. It's a suit jacket.
Yes.
But it's made of leather.
Yes.
That thing is almost indestructible. And then I've got another jacket. Well, it's a coat actually. It's almost down to past your knees.
Yeah.
Made of mohair.
Oh, that's awesome.
Both of these things come from London.
That's very gangster, though, hey? The mohair one, you look like
jacket.
You look like one of the Krays.
It is. I must actually pull that thing out.
That's awesome.
I wonder if the moths have gotten to it.
Yeah, but when I think about like that, and that's so cool that you got those from your dad, because it's something that you'll probably pass on, because it's not going to get, unless you leave it and the moths eat it.
Yeah.
It's going to be good. And that vintage stuff comes back, right?
Yeah.
The point, though, is this personalization. It's like everything needs to be personalized. People really like that stuff. They want they even want their car keys to look different.
Well, I think there's 2 things. I mean, we're constantly at AutoTrader modifying the user experience.
Yeah.
And we're now starting to talk about, how do we create an experience that is unique to every human that comes to the platform?
Sure.
So you've been to AutoTrader's website, you've searched for certain makes, models, variants, price categories, whatever the case may be. You've, can we configure the screen in a different way? Well, I don't know about that, but at least give the user what they want to see in their experience.
So your algorithm does a lot of that, right? So for example, if I've looked for sports cars.
Yes. So view with sports cars.
That then automatically because I'm also subscribed to your mailer. So then I'll get like 2 or 3 emails every couple of days. And mostly they would be cars that I want to look at.
Related to your personal life.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily going to buy them, but it's nice to look,
Yes,
you know. And I think that what percentage of your visitors do you think are window shopping?
In the upper echelon of the price categories, like the Ferraris, Porsches, Lamborghinis, a lot.
Almost all of them.
Yeah, they get most of the views and the least conversion. That's how we measure it.
Right.
So
does that irritate you? You're like, ugh, these people. It's like you don't have to keep the shop open like an actual dealer, right? But people go on at like 2 a.m. and they're like, oh, look at that. I wish I had that car.
I'd worry if you're going into Auto Trader at 2 a.m.
Hey, it happened to me. I promise you, not so long ago.
During lockdown, we saw a spike.
Oh, yeah.
If you remember.
So when guys are bored, it's either Auto Trader or porn or games. For some people, it's gaming, or it's music. With girls, I think it might be a bit different, but I think girls also like to look at cars. You know, I've got a friend and she's massively into her car. She loves it.
I mean, the other thing we see from a personalization point of view is that there's probably 2 categories. One is personalization. The other is following the crowd.
Oh yeah.
So when we serve ads to people that say other people have been looking at this car, suddenly that car's popularity goes up.
Okay, this is fascinating because I don't know that we've done enough research on this crowd think, group think thing. Because in South Africa, it's also a big part of, and we're going into voting this week. And I wonder how many people will make their decision based on the last conversation they had with somebody.
Yeah.
You know, most of us are not really reading the manifestos and paying attention to the detail like Pumi, who reads these things voraciously, right? She's like, well, if you look at what the ANC says about this and the EFF says about that. And I'm like, most people don't know the detail. I'm a fairly well-informed person, but if you ask me about the policy differences between Action SA and BOSA, I'm not going to know. I'd be lying to you if I said I was, right? And people always ask me like I'm some kind of expert, and I'm like, don't ask me.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's like when your friends ask you to fix their car, you know? But I think for a lot of people, it's like, what is everybody else doing?
Yeah.
I don't want to be the outlier.
That's so true. It's you know, following the crowd or being a sheep. I had a conversation with somebody the other day about the elections. Oh, it's so hard. What am I going to do? Where are we going to go in the future? Who's the right party to vote for? Do I vote for a small one? Then they can make no difference. I said to the person, this is my logic.
Yeah.
The best party to vote for is the one that can show a history and a track record.
Right.
Make a choice based
hopefully
on
a good track record.
Yes.
Oh.
So those that have, you know, do the smaller parties have a track record? Ask yourself that question, yes or no. Do the bigger parties have a track record? And if that track record is positive on the economy, there's your choice.
See, you might be persuading people right now, George. There might be people who are making up their mind just based on what George has just said now. He's like, he's going to have more influence on the election than these politicians themselves doing these dumb rallies.
I doubt it.
I still want to know, like, what kind of person goes to a party rally unless they're actually a member of the party? Who's going to waste their weekend going to the ANC one at FNB Stadium or the DA one? I don't even know where they did theirs, or the PA did theirs in Pretoria. And I'm like, who would go to these things? I mean, I know that there are obviously people who go for the free meal or the T-shirt or whatever. But if I think about the amount of effort that you'd have to go for one T-shirt, like those people would do better if they just stayed at home, saved the money for like 2 weeks. You buy the T-shirt yourself. I wouldn't go.
Every action in our life should be adding value.
Yeah.
Either to you or to the wider community and economy around you, right?
Yes.
So it's value get added. If you're sitting on the couch being a couch potato, what are you adding value to? Unless you're resting from a really hard gym workout.
By the way, I see Slippery Pickle says here he goes to, or she goes, I'm not even sure if Slippery Pickle's a him or a her, but I want to see cars priced well below market value but in good condition. Well, who doesn't?
There's a Slippery Pickle.
Yeah.
You have not been onto Auto Trader's website, because on the left-hand side on the filters, there are price indicators, and those price indicators, you can filter for low-priced cars under the market. Yes.
And I always line them up from lowest price to highest.
And you can do that too.
You can filter them that way as well. What happened to Leanne today? Says just plain Jared. I did say it at the start of the show. I'm fairly sure she is still off with her broken hand or whatever, but she'll be in next week. I can do all 4 of those things on the internet at the same time, Gareth. I can multitask, says Slippery Pickle. Okay, that's all 4 of those things we spoke about: the music, the porn, the auto trader, and the gaming. Wow. Okay, you need 4 hands for that, but okay. Patrick says, I saw Gareth said he would vote MK if he only had the ANC, EFF, and MK to choose from. For some reason, the statement was controversial. Van Damme attacked it. Okay, so I don't know who this person is. I wasn't trying to be rude or difficult, and I don't get into Twitter spats with people. I really don't. I've only been back on Twitter for 5 months, 4 months. So I'm really not looking for fights. But I don't know who this person is. And she clearly is a big Rise Mzansi fan. Because I said if it was ANC, EFF, MK, or Rise, I would vote in this order: MK, ANC, EFF, Rise. Like Rise to me just don't seem to have any policies. And there was that guy in Cape Town who's like, white people, this and that. I'm like, okay, go to hell. Don't need that shit in my life. At least with MK and the EFF, you know where you stand, you know? We've got people, as you say, track record to deal with. And the same goes for the ANC, so I'd rather have them. I don't know how that's... am I not allowed to say who I would vote for? I'm saying if you only gave me those 4 as a choice, that's how I would line it up. But I haven't entirely made my mind up yet. I had this brain fart over the weekend that imagine if one of these smaller parties, like the opposition party. So let's say it's got to be a substantial one, the DA, the EFF, the Freedom Front Plus, right? Because those are, or the IFP. Imagine if they just got together and made calls to all the other parties and said, listen, guys, no matter what happens, if the ANC gets below 50%, we're going to have to put together a government of national unity. But we'll do it in a big-hearted, smart, make South Africa great again way. In other words, what you'd do is you'd say, we'll make the IFP leader, Hlabisa, the president. We'd make Gayton McKenzie Minister of Safety and Security. Because he'd be so good. He just wants to get gangsters and criminals, right? Drugs. He wants to stop the borders from being porous. Give him that portfolio. He'd do the best job there. I'm telling you, a lot of people don't trust him.
Playing to people's passions.
But they would trust him in that job because he's the kind of guy who would take no nonsense. He'd clean out the bad policemen. He'd find out what was wrong. That's his whole thing. Give Musi Maimane the portfolio for education. He's always talking about how we need better education and higher education. Just smush basic and higher education together and give it to Musi. Give Herman Mashaba finance. He's never going to get a ministry on his own, right? None of these people are going to get into government on their own. But if you're clever and you're the DA or the Freedom Front or the EFF, you give it to them and you come to an arrangement. Give the EFF housing and water and sanitation, or things where they can actually improve people's lives. And they're always talking about the poor. Here's how you help the poor. Housing, social welfare is a good one for the EFF. You will distribute SASSA grants. Let's see them do it. Because I tell you what, if you've got a thing to prove and you're in government, you can't complain. And then what you do is you say to all these people, for the first 6 months of our government, you're not allowed to criticize anything because you're part of it.
Yeah.
So just sign this document. Anyone who criticizes is out straight away. But just for 6 months. And you obviously have the ANC in there as well because they're going to have a number of seats. So you give them their share. So if it's 48% or...
I would say 12 months, not even 6. I mean, you need momentum.
12 months maybe. And you don't fire anyone in the bureaucracy for like 2 years. I know it's going to burn us and it's going to cost us. But for 2 years, you say to all the people who are in government, listen, guys, you have these 2 years to prove yourself on merit, right? And if you're not here in merit...
Meritocracy, definitely.
If you're not here in merit, then you can resign now and we'll pay you out your 2 years, but you must go.
Yeah.
So in other words, you make the decision now. Do you want sheltered employment for 2 years where you try and prove yourself? Or do you want to pay out for 2 years and you can go and find another job in the private sector? And you start cleaning it out that way. And I'll tell you what, EFF fans will be thrilled that they've got 2 portfolios. The PA will be pleased that Gayton's in. Bosa will be pleased that Musi's in. Action SA will be thrilled that Herman's in. You'll have the DA give Glynis Breitenbach justice and sort out a couple of others, and give the ANC the ones that they really care about. You know, I mean, like, there are all kinds of portfolios there that they're massively into, like public service and administration, and, you know, let them come in, but they're going to be monitored as part of a government of national unity by whoever it is. You have, importantly, I wouldn't say you let someone like John Steenhuisen be the president, but I honestly see this as working.
I mean,
if they could put their egos aside,
that's the problem, is the egos, and
anyway.
and you know, so many opinions.
I don't know. I had this wild idea, and I
think your idea is a good one.
Yeah, maybe it's just too little, too late, right? Hi, Gareth. Since you decided to be independent after a long career in radio, how about you go and vote for the independent candidates? What do you mean, Zaki Ahmad? No, don't be ridiculous. I would not let Julius Malema run a fucking car wash, says Carl. Are you nuts? The EFF would steal all the money. No. If it's SASSA grants and they steal the money, then they're making enemies of their own supporters. Think about that. And I do think that there will be monitoring involved here. It's not going to be like you're running the portfolio as a free agent. You're part of the government. You're still going to cabinet meetings. And by the way, we reduced those cabinet positions to like 16. You have 16 cabinet posts. You don't need all these 40, whatever it is that we've got now. No deputy ministers. You don't need them.
Yeah.
Get rid of them.
Well, push them further down push those roles further down the ranks so that there's more people on the ground.
Correct. And
execution
also,
is the key.
And a big part of this needs to be that you take the important functions of government and you move them down to municipal and local level. That's a massive part of this, is that most of us don't deal with national government on a day-to-day basis. So make it local. And that's one of the reasons that I like the IFP in this election. I really do. Gareth, you're talking cuck to another level, says Arthur. Okay. You know what? I mean, call me an idiot, but I really believe that this is the one thing. You know how South Africa would get behind a government that's made up of all these parties? There's no one left outside. Everybody feels accommodated.
Well, that's a perfect coalition, right?
I reckon it could, but it needs enormous amounts of strength and force of will, and you need to be able to put people in a room and make the adult come out rather than the child. And I do think it could happen, man. I mean, I would just love to live in a country where all of those people are part of the government, making it work, instead of standing outside pissing and shouting and crying and moaning and insulting. And I mean, tie them in. Say, look, you want this position in cabinet. You'll never get it on your own, Gayton, Musi, you know, Herman. But this is a way you guys could make a difference. Anyway, I would love to see that happen. I don't think it will. I don't think our politicians are. I don't think they have the ability to put themselves last. And you know what? This would be like a founding fathers moment. Like when the US Constitution was adopted. It wasn't just Washington. It was Jefferson, Washington, Adams, Hamilton. These were all the people who put that country in the position that it was in when it was first founded. And this is what we need. And then take Thabo Mbeki's idea of the national dialogue, give him resources, give him all the power he needs to really get South Africans in the room and talking again. And we can figure out how we can restructure things to make it better. And make him the chair of that. It would be amazing. People would come, they'd help, they'd get involved. What South African citizen, if that was the case, wouldn't go, I'm in, what do you need from me? As opposed to, what are you going to give me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. How can I help?
Anyway. Okay. Call me a pie in the sky idealist, but there we are. That was my idea over the weekend. Who knows? Sanele says, I believe elections should be about the future, not about the past, and historic track record isn't always the best predictor for the future. Look at Nokia. That's exactly right. I mean, this is a big passion of yours, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. You know, it's the past is not the predictor of the future, but it is one of the predictors of the future. You know, so what you're doing right now is the biggest predictor of the future.
Yeah.
But what you have done is the only way to tell whether you can be successful or not.
Is it your alarm?
It was.
That's normally, are you normally up at 6:28?
No. I've got a number of alarms that go off. I'm up at 4:30 every morning.
Yeah. I got a 4:30, 4:35, 4:40.
Okay.
Every 5 minutes, just in case. And it still doesn't always work.
No, it's really just markers to say, all right, your gym needs to be done now.
Okay. Right. You're that organized.
Well,
Wow.
Not really.
I have ambition to be that organized. If elections were about the future, you'd see more young leaders in top positions, not those fat-bellied old bullies, says Bitcoin But. Yeah. Funny, Bitcoin But, you make me think of what we did on Friday. You can put up the picture of this guy who will be playing the interview out on Wednesday morning. You may recognize him. He's 77 years old now, but I interviewed him on Friday. We'll be playing it out for you. Robert Kiyosaki, the guy who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yes, he's in South Africa, isn't he?
He is in South Africa. He's selling books and all kinds of things.
I've read his book. It's
you
really,
like it?
I love the principle. One of the biggest principles out of Robert Kiyosaki's book is that a home that you live in, that you own, is not an asset; it's a liability.
Wow! You see, I opened it up on some random page, and it said something like, "Rich people don't use their own money, and they don't have money in the bank.
Use someone else's money.
They borrow other people's money.
Leverage.
Yeah,
leverage. But there's a massive principle behind productive and unproductive debt. Most South Africans get themselves into an unproductive debt state. So you've got to use debt to make income. That's the big difference.
There we go.
If you're using debt to make income, hey, use all of everyone else's money.
Doesn't look too bad for 77 though, huh?
Brilliant.
And he still goes hunting. That's one of the reasons he comes here too.
Yeah.
And that obviously is very unpopular with some people. But I couldn't figure it out because there were one or two people here after meeting him and after hearing the interview said, oh no, he's a snake oil salesman.
How's that?
Well, he wasn't actually selling anything on the show, but he does do these courses where you kind of learn to, and I suppose for some people that would be the thing that he would get money out of you for. But I thought he was quite interesting and very outspoken about politics in America. My God, he's friends with Donald Trump, and he has nothing nice to say about Biden. He's like, he's a criminal. And I thought, wow, okay, very outspoken.
Kiyosaki is the biggest capitalist you'd find.
Yes, exactly.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Buisile says, first time I'm seeing Borge live. Face card matched the voice exactly as I've imagined listening to the podcast. Wow. Okay, Buisile, nice to have you on. Very good. B says, I saw Damon yesterday, almost unrecognizable. He was walking and very thin, maybe using the exercise alarm that George uses. Well, I hope you told him, I hope you said hello. Gareth, will you talk about Bitcoin with him? It's the best performing asset in the last 10 years. We did talk about it very briefly, and he mentioned it in the same vein as gold. He said it's a thing that will retain its value outside of government interference, which it should, although there are now governments getting involved in it too. So it's not as clean as it once was, because once the government starts taking an interest in these things, they tend to get bastardized. But I'm still not I've never been anti-cryptocurrencies. In fact, I'm a very big maximalist in that respect. But I think it will be interesting for you to hear his comments. And we didn't talk about it for long, but the interview is about 30 minutes long, and we cover a lot of different things. Take a listen. I'm pretty sure he went bankrupt, says Carl. I think he's a scam artist. Well, declaring bankruptcy or insolvency is also a tool.
Well, in America,
rich people use.
In America, declaring bankruptcy is a strategy sometimes.
It's a way you get out of tax.
Yes.
Yeah. I saw, by the way, Zahara died a while ago, right? The singer. And I saw that SARS is going after her. There's like, they're going after her estate for like those sons. SARS is pretty awful. But to go after dead people's money is just, that's the worst.
The state duty.
Oh, it's disgusting. It's just disgusting. I can't get it. It's just, there's nothing about SARS that makes me happy. All right, so take a listen, a look at this quickly. This is also interesting. The most dangerous cities in the world. This came out last week.
Aren't we like 7th?
I can't believe this. You tell me what you think, George. So here is a little graphic that says these are the top 5 most dangerous cities in the world. Okay, 5th is Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea. That's like they had an incidence of cannibalism about 10 years ago there.
We are 3 of the top 5?
We are 3 of the top 5. I don't know if I believe this. 4th is Johannesburg. 3rd is Caracas in Venezuela. 2nd is Pretoria. And 1st is Pietermaritzburg.
How do they measure this?
I don't buy this at all. I'm sorry.
Visa God.
I don't think this is right.
No.
I want to know what their methodology is. I mean, listen.
No, they haven't even got Brazil on that list.
No, exactly. And Caracas, Venezuela, 3rd. You're telling me Maritzburg is more dangerous than Caracas? Maritzburg. I mean, they aren't. What? Really? Someone help me understand that. And the fact that Pretoria outranks Joburg and Cape Town is outrageous.
Yeah, Johannesburg's
no way.
Got to be more dangerous than Pretoria.
And Cape Town, for heaven's sake, with all the gangsters and drugs. Don't tell me that Pretoria is worse. I don't believe it. Not for a second. If anybody has any intel on this, I would love to know. Maritzburg, please. Who's got Maritzburg when they think of dangerous places? You hear people in America that come here as tourists. Well, I don't mind coming to Joburg or Cape Town, but I won't go to Pietermaritzburg. I've heard it's terrible there.
Maybe it's the Scotland version, Maritzburg.
Maritzburg.
They beat each other up in the bars. That's
the only thing that's dangerous about Maritzburg, in my experience, is the cougars, like the divorced women over 40. That's the only dangerous thing about Maritzburg. And it's only if you're a guy and you're reasonably good looking. Otherwise, there's nothing to be... Please trust me, there's nothing to be scared of in Maritzburg. They're scared of all the boerseens in Pretoria, says Naked Goose, wearing their khaki shorts and pluckies in the winter. Yeah, but that's not dangerous. Apparently, they never had... this isn't accurate. What's their mythology, says 21 Savage. Not methodology, mythology in ranking these. Pretoria is there because of all the lebs and potholes. There are lebs in Pretoria. The lebs are all in Joburg.
They're in
the East Rand.
East Rand, Bedford View.
No, exactly. Pretoria. What a lot of nonsense. Port Elizabeth was a few weeks ago labeled the most dangerous city in South Africa, says Patrick. PE is dangerous, yeah, but not the worst. Again, I don't believe PE is more dangerous than...
No.
What a lot of nonsense.
Well, that's not a nonsense.
All right, speaking of nonsense, here's James. Look at him. How's it, James?
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Good. Very, very good. How was your weekend?
It was great. Did a lot of
Excellent.
work this weekend. Lots of sports action also.
Yes,
So, yeah,
lots of. Well,
good
that's
weekend.
why we've got you here, James.
I hope so.
So tell us what
Hope I
you
can do
can
it justice.
tell us about the world of sport this morning. Of course, this is our little look back at what happened on the scoreboard over the weekend with Super Bets. And James has all the details.
Let's start with, I wanted to show you a picture from the Monaco Grand Prix, but it's not loading into StreamYard.
That's not very good.
But I'm going to...
I wonder if we had a producer, if that could be solved.
That's hectic. So at the Monaco Grand Prix this weekend, George mentioned there was quite a big accident.
Yes.
I'm going to try to figure out how to get that picture on you.
Okay. We want
but
to
it's
see it, but maybe after you've done.
After context,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
That's right. Charles Leclerc won his first Monaco Grand Prix with a lights to flag victory on home soil after a huge crash on that opening lap. That's the one that we mentioned. The race was red flagged on the first lap due to a big crash between Kevin Magnussen, Sergio Perez, and Nico Hülkenberg. After only just turn one, guys, with all 3 drivers unhurt despite the high-speed collisions. So those top 3, how it ended, Leclerc, Piastri, and then Carlos Sainz. So 2 Ferraris on a podium for the Monaco Grand Prix.
Yeah.
In the world of football, the FA Cup final happened this weekend. Manchester United fans are going to be slightly unbearable for the next while.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. They beat Manchester City 2-1.
You've been a bit rude about them lately, haven't you?
They're not my favorite club.
So, in other words, you're going to have to eat humble pie for a couple of days.
Pretty much.
There are people in the comments who are quite pissed off with you. They're very anti-Man U sentiments coming from James.
I'm not good at hiding my biases towards Man United. But fair play to them. They did win a trophy this season. Eric Ten Hag says he wants his future decided as quickly as possible, with the club preparing to review his contract. So, yeah, will Ten Hag stay? these are the questions we want to ask. He's won them 2 trophies in 2 seasons, so I don't think it'd be too bad of a move for them. In the world of PSL, Sundowns finally lost a game. They didn't do an invincible season this season.
But it doesn't matter.
They already won the league, you're
Yeah.
right. But yes, they finally lost their very last game of the season, 1-0 to Cape Town City. Richards Bay beat Stellenbosch. Pirates drew with SuperSport United, which means Pirates finished 2nd on the log. Chiefs embarrassingly lost to relegated Cape Town Spurs, meaning
Wow.
they finished 10th.
How the mighty have fallen. Ben brought this up on Friday with Chiefs,
Not good.
but it's so embarrassing that they're so shit.
Their worst ever
Kaiser
finish.
Chiefs used to be a monster juggernaut, like not that long ago. Very, very sad.
Here we are. And then Patrice came in and bought football, and here we are.
Yeah, V-Rus says, Ben called it on Friday. He said,
He did.
bet on Man U against all odds.
They did, and they
There you
did
go.
actually speak about it quite a lot last week. Someone actually told me Man United were going to win 2-1, and that's what they said I should bet, and that was exactly the scoreline. So if I had bet, I would have made some money, but I didn't.
Okay.
I'm my own enemy. Lastly, the Rugby Investing Champions Cup, Leinster beat Toulouse after extra time. Toulouse beat Leinster 31-22 after extra time. At a full time, it was 15-15. That game ending 31-22. And then the Ben's EPCR Challenge Cup final. The Sharks won at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Fun fact, Sharks from South Africa, Sharks rugby, different sports and everything, have won a trophy at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium before Tottenham Hotspur have. So
That's embarrassing.
That's quite something.
Sure.
Yeah. And that is the sport.
Well, Sanele disagrees with you, says it wasn't a big upset, the Formula One. Verstappen was shit. Red Bull was shit. The man who deserved to win won. That's not an upset.
I didn't think it was an upset either.
I don't know. I don't know if Leclerc. Yeah, he deserved to win that race.
So, we finally got someone here who actually knows something about Formula One. Go on.
The person who I think deserves to give Verstappen a go is the McLarens, especially Lando Norris.
He's on
Piastri's
form, huh?
good, but Lando Norris is just showing consistency.
Isn't that a cool
all the
name,
time.
though? Lando Norris. Right?
Yeah, it's a very cool name. He's such a
Star
nice
Wars.
guy
So
as
it's
well.
like a mix of Lando Calrissian from Star Wars and Chuck Norris. How could you go wrong?
Lando
That's just
Norris.
great.
The trouble with Leclerc is he's inconsistent. He'll win, he'll get onto the podium, or he'll be nowhere. He's one of those kind of Euro or nothing.
Call it eccentric.
It's a good word.
So Jason says, please thank Ben for the tip for Man United. I won 2,000
should have
rand.
done it.
See, this is what happens. Yeah. Here we go. Someone else says in the comments here, Patrick says, I remember and almost put a 500 rand on it. 8-1, do the maths. I'd be bawling this morning.
Wow.
Damn. You see, if you don't listen to Ben's Sport on a Friday, you only really come for James to give you whether you won or lost, right?
Yeah,
But
pretty much.
on a Friday, he's giving you good tips here. I mean, the guy should be charging everybody for this. He should take a commission on every victory that is won. $2,000 for Jason over the weekend. Nice.
I shouldn't let my biases interfere with my betting in future.
No, Carl says he put 150 on United and won 1170.
Wow.
Yeah, that's very good. Very good.
Yeah.
All right, so people are winning money based on the sport on this show. Excellent stuff. And of course, the sport is brought to you by Superbets, who support responsible gambling, strictly no under 18s. Winners know when to stop. The South African Responsible Gambling Foundation's toll-free counseling hotline is 0800 006 008, and you'll get some more sport with us on Friday. Thank you, James.
Thank you, guys.
See if you can find that crash for us. It'll
I
be
will.
cool to watch. I think a lot of people just watch Formula One for the crashes.
Especially
So
those tracks.
it's horrible, but then that's human nature, right?
Yeah, and the cars are. I mean, you don't want to wish a crash on anybody.
No.
the cars are
Horrible.
much safer than they used to be. Much safer.
But again, I just have to say, like, those guys are incredible. The way they drive, the speed that they're able to make decisions at, it's phenomenal.
So they're trained. I mean, if you watch the driver view, in the car. Their thumbs are usually through the steering wheel, and the steering wheel is usually almost a rectangular shape. The thumb is through the steering wheel. They are trained that when a crash is happening, to let the steering go, because the steering wheel can rip their thumbs, dislocate, break.
Wow.
Because if you can imagine if that front wheel hits something and that steering turns viciously, you could dislocate and break your hand off if you're not careful.
So as they realize they're about to crash, they take their hands
off the steering wheel.
Good heavens. Wow. That's you're telling me things. I might even have to watch Formula One after this, George. You've achieved what no one else in the history of this show has ever done, like getting me to watch Grand Prix. That would be something. Leclerc isn't consistent, says K&A. Ferrari has been a mess for years, but they're peaking just on time for the 7 WDC to join them and get an 8th. In Lewis, we trust. Okay, so they're obviously fans of very. Okay.
Well, I think part of the Ferrari not winning for the last couple of years has been the cost cap. Because Ferrari is such a big company. They were able to throw money at Formula One for a long time. Now there's the cost cap, so all teams are almost equal in terms of the amount of money they can spend. And suddenly, if you go from being able to spend whatever you want to having a limit on what you can spend, suddenly you've got to be really efficient. And I think Ferrari suffer from that a bit. And they've just for the last 2 years been using AI to bring their costs down, to design the car and the aeros and the engine and the engine bay. And now you can see they're starting to do better again.
That's amazing. So again, the accountants, got to get them involved.
Well, not really. These, yes, the accountants, but it's forced them to go down the AI route.
Okay. I mean, that's an amazing use of AI that I didn't know about. Carl says that's the same reason I keep an eye on the ANC, car wrecks and own goals. And then Vera says here, in drag racing, apparently the driver's retina is detached sometimes when the parachute deploys. Holy hell.
I did not know that. I suppose. I mean, you're going from 300 k's an hour to
all right,
very slow.
Okay, so we may or may not get that footage from the crash with James. He'll see if he can find that for us. I thought this is a great thing. Just put up that that picture of the sentence where the emphasis is on the different words. I just want to look at this quickly because this just shows you how complicated English is as a language, but also how important it is to put the emphasis in the right place. Okay, so this is the same sentence. I'm going to read it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And every time it means something completely different. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
I never said she stole my money. 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 Right? You getting this?
I'm getting it.
Everything different so far, right? I never said she stole my money.
Gee whiz.
I never said she stole my money. I never said she stole my money.
Which means she stole something else.
Every single word in that sentence can have emphasis on it, and it changes the meaning of the whole sentence.
So what if you combine two of them? Like, I never said she stole my money. So you could get a permutation of 3, 6, 7, 8 multiplied by 8. So 8 squared.
So you're saying you could emphasize 2 words.
Yes. And change the meaning again.
So then suddenly, and this is why people go, oh, I don't know what you mean. Because if you don't learn in basic comprehension at school level, for example, that this is how complex a sentence can be, you think, oh, well, it means I never said she stole my money. But what do you mean?
So this monotone people are onto something.
Yeah. I mean, that just shows you how complicated stuff can get.
Well, it just shows you how listening is as an art on its own.
Hey, is Hanan on? Oh, he's here. Let's get to Dr. Hanan. Hey, Doc. I'm sorry, we were wasting your time. We're talking about people stealing money, and I never put the emphasis on the right syllable. Emphasis on the right syllable, as Leanne would say if she was here. How are you, Doc?
Yeah, I'm doing well, but actually your conversation is very interesting psychologically as well, because definitions do matter.
Yeah.
And I get many people, throwing these big words that think they mean something, but they're very unhelpful. For example, if somebody comes along and says, I'm depressed,
Yeah.
that sounds quite specific, but it's completely unhelpful and too general and doesn't mean anything unless you define exactly what you mean by that. And when you define things in very general and pixelated terms, you are actually disempowering yourself to actually doing anything about it. So it's very, very much matters in the world of psychology as well.
So what do you do when someone pitches up and says, I'm depressed? Do you get them to dig deep and find the proper definition?
Completely. So one of my most common terms that I use in my practice is, what do you mean? Because depressed mean nothing to anybody. It doesn't mean anything. So if somebody get 100 people and they all sound depressed, it means very different to every individual. For one person means my boss is being difficult. Another one, I'm financially strapped. Another person means I'm dealing with a difficult mother. Another one means I'm dealing with a lack of purpose in my life. It means very different things for very different people. And unless you define it specifically, you just don't have the leverage or the power to create a framework to work through it.
George has a question for you because he drove in this morning and encountered our security guard, and he just has a general attitude question, which I think is quite relevant for a lot of us.
Morning, Doc. How are you?
Morning, George.
Good. I noticed that the security guard was grumpy, and it made me think, did she wake up in this morning and choose to be grumpy? Or was it an unconscious choice? And then the domino effect of these unconscious choices that we make in life, you're grumpy, you affect the person driving through the boom, or you affect other people in your life. And you've made this unconscious choice to be grumpy. Or is it just a case of state of being?
So I'll answer, as a true psychologist, your question in two ways. First of all, from the perspective of the receiver, I always caution people to just be careful about judging other people's states, because we think we are such good predictors of other people's states, and we are properly useless. We can look at somebody who is looking grumpy, but in that moment, they might be feeling ill, or in that moment, they might have received a worrying text, or in that moment they might have a thought, or maybe your car that you're driving reminds them of something that they reminisce about that has happened in their past. So I can easily show you a picture of somebody and ask you, what do you think this person is feeling? And you will give me a whole narrative or what this person might be going through, which would probably be 99% untrue. So we, even as psychologists, we might look at somebody and go, that person looks unhappy or miserable, but it might not be true. So you always want to get the angle of the person who you're judging, and also what's going on in their lives to get a true perspective. And by the way, even then it's inaccurate, because they might be feeling something that's completely unrelated, and they might connect the dots in inaccurate ways. So that's number one. Never judge really what the person's going through, because you just don't know. And they, most of the time, don't know themselves. But to answer your question, attitude is a choice. I define attitude as a commitment to how this story ends. A commitment to how the story ends. And I'll give you an analogy. Imagine we're sitting down, we're watching a movie. This is a horror movie, let's just say. And we start by watching the last 5 minutes of the show, the last 5 minutes of the movie. And the last 5 minutes, the hero, the main character, survives, thrives, runs off into the sunset, is happy, is wonderful. That's the last 5 minutes. Now we go watching the beginning of the movie. And in the first part of the movie, the hero gets shot. What do you think about it? Well, you go, I don't care, because I know how it ends.
Yeah.
What if in the middle of the movie, the hero gets really injured and ends up in hospital? Well, you go, I still don't care, because I know how the movie ends. What if the hero gets buried? Well, you're still not going to care, because you've seen the ending. The moment you commit to how a story ends, the beginning and the middle don't matter. You don't marry moments. So when you have a bad moment, it doesn't matter, because you know how the story ends. When you're having a difficult moment, it doesn't matter, because you know how the story ends. I always tell people, don't marry moments. We like to take a snapshot of our lives and make it the whole movie. We might take a snapshot of a disappointment and think that's our whole lives. We might take a snapshot of a failure and think that's our whole lives. Don't marry moments, commit to how the story ends, and just walk through the movie knowing that everything is going to be okay.
I love that.
Love it.
All right, so we don't have a lot of time for this, and I don't really want to spend too much time thinking about this because it doesn't bother me that much. But there are probably a few people who are very worried and stressed around the election because people are losing their minds on social media on the possibility that the ANC win or they don't win, possible coalitions, what's going to happen, insecurity, instability. I'm not feeling that way at all, Doc, but I think there probably are a lot of people are. What do you do when you have something like this that you have no control over? Is it worth worrying about?
So, Gareth, you know my philosophy on the coin theory, which is invest your time into things that add value to you. Invest your time into things that you can control. The moment you invest your time into things that you cannot control, you just lose control. So, yes, this is a very uncertain time for people, and people want change, people want something different, people are unhappy with their current circumstances, and they're anticipating, and this is what we call anticipatory anxiety, they're anticipating change in some way, or they're anticipating things staying the same, which is scary either way. So I would just advise people to control what they can, focus on things that add value to their existence. And what could we control? I mean, we've been through COVID, so what could we control? Plenty. You can control your relationships at home. You can control your routine. You can control what you focus on in terms of your sense of purpose and your financial stability. So clean house first, do your bedroom first, then focus on other things that you have no control over.
I love it. I also think that people who are really, really invested in this, like I'm expecting this to be the result. And I've looked at these polls and all the rest of it, and find themselves disappointed. It's like betting on the stock market. You know, if you're really tied up in the result, if everything is about what happens at the end, that story you were telling earlier, and you're going to be deeply disappointed if it doesn't end the way you think, you're setting yourself up for misery, right?
Yeah. You know, Gareth, I always tell people, don't marry the potential of what it could be, marry the reality of what it is. And of course, we live with hope, always live with hope. There's no question. Hope never goes away. But with hope, as the story unfolds, live with what it is, work with what it is. The table is filled with toys. Play with whatever's in front of you. Don't play with what you wish it was, because that's not real. Work with what it is.
Okay, but then that's not in conflict with don't marry moments.
Don't marry, no, so not at all. So in other words, you live with hope. The hope never goes away, but play with what it is. It's about being realistic. So don't marry moments by going, because I feel disappointed, this is my whole life. No. Disappointment is real. But what do I do with it in order to eventually get to the end of the story, which is everything is going to be okay?
Got you. That's very, very useful information. You're not anxious about the elections at all, Doc? You're not, this doesn't bother you?
It doesn't bother me at all.
George?
No, I've got a positive view. I think we've reached the bottom of the barrel.
And do you also think that if things go better during this election, it'll improve the economy? I mean, that's true. That's a reality. But you can't change it.
No. We can all change it, but I can't change it.
So Carl says here, Borge, security guards earn about $4,000 a month to do a fairly dangerous job. What do you want from them? Flick flacks?
No. I don't want flick flacks.
No,
a smile.
If I could go back to George's example just quickly, because we do have a minute or two, Doc, and think about how, like, we're never grateful for the things we've already got, right? We just consider those are just default settings now. Human beings, if you have a job, if you're alive, if you're in good physical health, most people don't wake up in the morning and go, oh, wow, I can walk.
Or I'm alive.
But if you can't walk, suddenly that's all you're thinking about once you get to walk again. You don't wake up and go, I haven't got the flu. Oh, yay, I'm so lucky. Or you wake up and you go, well, I'm not dead. Very few people do that. This is a very human condition, right?
Yeah, but perspective, we've got so much to be grateful for, from our health to specific relationships to the fact that we have access to this information that, I don't know, 30 years ago, you have to open, you have to go to the library to get it. Now it's at the, at our fingertips. We take a lot of things for granted, but again, human beings are incredible at adapting, and we're terrible at predicting, but we're amazing at adapting. And that means we start taking things for granted because we expect it to be the norm. But I always tell people, and certainly my patients, you got to stock take. You got to see what you've got, because it's so easy to forget the good and the benefits of your current existence, and to kind of sweep it under the carpet and forget about it. But you got to be grateful. We got plenty.
Well, I mean, Marco in the comments says show gratitude every day. And I know Marco had to learn to walk again after an accident. And that's just all the proof you need right there. That guy's comment's the only one you need to pay attention to today. But Doc, you can actually draw up a balance sheet. Like, I think this is not a bad idea for anyone who's feeling sorry for themselves. And if you are having a bit of a rough day, sit down and write down 2 columns, right? The things that you have, that you are grateful for. It might take you a little bit of time to figure that out. You might have to sit and really do quite a lot of analysis and research, and then draw up a list of the things that you want and that are actually attainable. And you'll suddenly realize, like, A, you've already got enough to live. There's enough there that makes life worth living. And B, you've got enough things that you still want to work for that makes life worth living.
Right. I'll give people a 30-second homework, and they can re-listen to this and take notes. There are 8 areas of your life that you can stock take: career, financial security, family, friends, romantic, diet, exercise, and sleep, which is actually divided into 3 categories: your health, your relationships, and your sense of purpose. And you want to do 2 things. One, you want to ask yourself, what do I have that I should be grateful for every single day? And number 2, and I'll split your column into 2 things: what do I want and how am I going to get it? Not just what do I want, what action am I going to take to get me from point A to point B? Because you don't want to you don't want to live you don't want to live in la la land hoping but not doing anything about it. So what do I have and what do I want and how do I get there?
Love it. That is a masterclass this morning.
All the cabinet ministers down to local government level. Execution.
Or just execute them. All right. Thank you very much, Doc. Nice to see you.
All right, guys.
And
nice to see you.
Have a good week. We'll check in with you next week. Thank
you.
You
too, guys.
Dr. Hanan, and very, very useful information there. And actually, the best advice, I think that was like especially that last couple of minutes where he divided it all up into that list of things. Drop that balance sheet every week. See how you're doing.
Exactly.
It's not a bad plan. And it's never going to get boring, right? Because it's the stuff, it's you. Yeah. It's your life. It's your stuff. Why would you get bored with that? All right. Patrick Bet-David said it best when he said that he is so rich that it doesn't matter who wins the elections, he'll be okay. Well, that's what we should all try to aim for. I think everybody worries about that. Everybody.
Government can wipe out your richness very, very quickly.
Yeah. Nobody's completely immune to this stuff. But there's stuff you can change and stuff you can't. Yeah. You're not going to be able to walk into the union buildings and say, I demand you leave, no matter how important you think you are. It's not going to happen. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, George and I are here, and we will be joined by Murray Legg. We're going to talk a little bit about influence, but he's written this interesting op-ed about the 3 apples that changed human history. Can you guess which 3 apples they are? It's not that difficult. Think about it, and when we come back, I'll tell you the answer.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
Okay. But now I can see from here, like you've got like these big wheel arches. Yeah. You've got like a new front grille, some bumpers, skid plate, etc. that's happening there. But underneath all of this like strong appearance, did they actually change anything mechanically from a standard RS?
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
Okay, good morning. If you've just woken up and you just started your day, well, you come to the right place. Like, comment, subscribe, join us. You get to have your say. It's all very, very exciting. And here this morning with me in the studio is not Leanne Mole, but George Meany. And George is, of course, most well known to all of us as the CEO of Auto Trader, but he also has lots of interesting things to say about all kinds of interesting things. I just want to show you this picture quickly, something very funny about the Formula One over the weekend. So here's a picture of the crash, but this is the best possible. Look,
It's terrible.
look at what they show next to it.
Well, you know,
Right?
I've always said, I think Red Bull, brilliant team, but, you know, it's not a car.
Ooh.
It's a can.
Oh, there we go. So, where do we begin? I said I would tell you about the little riddle I asked earlier about the 3 apples, because we're going to be talking to Murray Legg a little bit later on. Murray, of course, is one of the founders of Webfluential, which is a brilliant system which most people in the world of influence have used as a barometer of how valuable they are, based on calculations of what kind of numbers you could generate, what kind of fees you could ask for, depending on your following on social media. So he's always been an interesting guy to talk to. But he's written this op-ed about the 3 apples that have changed humanity. And Marco says the apple that Adam and Eve had, Apple technology, and an actual organic apple, where you got 2 out of 3. The third one is a little more cryptic, but it's Newton's apple, gravity. So the beginning of science, really. I mean, proper modern science. So I think that's amazing. So we'll find out what those 3 apples mean with Murray a little bit later on. I still think Picasso, the painter, amazed the ladies. I'm not sure what that has to do with anything, but okay. Thank you for that. If you can find out your Betty has an Adam's apple, that would be pretty life-changing. Says Congo Chris. Yeah, that would be frightening, Chris. That would be really, really frightening. So let's see what's going on in the news. Pay some attention to this stuff because we need to know, right? So this is amazing. Glue pizza and eat rocks. Google AI search errors go viral. So George is a big fan of AI. In fact, he talks to ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
You told us about this when you were in here last time.
Well, just the other day.
It's not because he's lonely or because he's boring. This is actually fascinating. He says he can have intellectual conversations with ChatGPT. Go on.
Makes me more intelligent.
Okay.
So I had a conversation with ChatGPT the other day in the car, and I'd read.
Is yours a she or a he?
Mine's a he.
Okay.
Okay, and there's a cheesy reason why it's a he.
Go on.
Okay, and that's got to do with Iron Man.
Okay, so it's like what is it called?
What is Iron Man's AI?
The computer?
The computer. I can't remember the name of it, but that's the reason. Is Jarvis.
Jarvis.
It's because I've always wanted my own Jarvis.
Got you. Okay.
So now
that's good.
ChatGPT is my Jarvis.
Okay.
So I'm having a conversation, and I had read 2 books in my history. I'd read 2 books many years ago, probably more than 10 years ago. I read a book by David Allen called Getting Things Done.
Okay.
I was a very big productivity nerd.
Yes.
Still am, but getting things done. And then a couple of years ago, a book came on the scene called My Second Brain by Diego Forte. If you haven't read that book, you should read it.
Okay.
Okay.
More homework.
Little bit of a different spin on productivity.
Cool.
So I started having this conversation with ChatGPT about productivity, and I said to him, "Please, could you summarize in a mind map for me the 2 books from David Allen, Getting Things Done, and Diego Forte, Building a Second Brain?" And this
came up with a graphic.
This was the result. I'll show you the result.
Wow.
It's very, very, very cool. I'm not going to waste your time right now. I'll get it up in a second. But he actually drew a mind map of both books and all of the concepts that I'd been talking about.
And you read these, 10 years or more ago?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, that would be handy because I've read a lot of books, but I cannot remember so much of so many of them, and that's only because you have certain amounts of random access memory, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you can't prioritize everything. What's that? Is that George's coffee? Look here, James has brought you coffee.
Thank
See,
you, James.
Just to prove that some things on this set are real. It's the real network, not the unreal one.
Oh, I've got 57 hours and 50 minutes. 57 hours, 50 minutes to go on my fast.
Of your fast.
So this coffee's going to go down well.
Oof. Now, in this fast, we'll get back to your books in a second because I do find that interesting. In this fast, you're only allowed to drink water.
Water and black coffee. And you can drink tea as long as it's got no calories.
Okay. And when did you start it?
Last night.
And
Last
so you will
meal was
finish
about 3:30.
So you'll finish what, tomorrow?
Tomorrow night. No, Wednesday night.
Oh my God. Doesn't that feel long?
It is long.
Feels very long. And what do you shed weight and do you feel energetic or do you feel depleted?
So I do it for the health benefits, not the weight benefits. So actually the weight loss annoys me because I lose too much weight. I lose anywhere between 3 to 4 kilograms over the 3-day period.
And do you do exercise as well?
On day 1, I would do exercise. Day 2 and 3, I don't.
Oh,
Try and conserve energy. Otherwise,
okay.
So I do it for the health benefits, and the health benefits are autophagy. You've heard of autophagy before, which is
tell me again.
So the word autophagy comes from the definition is eat thyself.
Right.
So what your body
You're
does,
eating your reserves.
it eats the least complex cells in your body.
Oh.
And that happens after
I've got a lot of those. I
approximately-
think there are a lot of very uncomplex cells in my body that could deserve to be eaten.
That process starts at about 36 hours, the autophagy
Okay.
process. And it eats the least complex cells. So your body has to consume in order to
Something,
stay
yeah.
alive. So it
Right.
eats the least complex cells. Least complex cells include cancer cells.
Oh, good. So that's clever.
So at all of you'll find your nails start growing slower. Your hair grows slower during the fasting process.
Wow.
Because your body just needs to get your organs.
It's like putting it into a bit of shock.
Yes. It's a bit of
And how often do you do this?
every 3 months.
Wow.
Every 3 months. And then the second reason I do it is stem cell release.
Okay.
So there's only 2 times, apparently, from what I've read. I'm no doctor, so please don't take
Okay.
this as medical
No.
advice.
This is useful to know.
there's
Worth
only-
a try for anybody.
There's only 2
You don't
times
starve yourself and die.
your body releases stem cells. One's in your mother's womb, and the second time is when you're in a starved state. And so the stem cells go to repair parts of your body.
I like the sound of that already, George. You've won me over. The reason I ask if you can manage to do any exercise and you're not completely useless after like the first day because you haven't had any energy input is because my dog had eaten something disgusting clearly on like Thursday, and she was really, really sick, and she was like shitting liquid, and it was just all very unpleasant, and she hadn't eaten for like 2 days, and I thought, oh God, she's going to die. But then I suddenly remembered, like, people do these long fasts and they don't die, and
Yeah.
she's fine. She's now back to normal.
Oh, not eating's actually
But
good for you sometimes.
It is good for you, and we are eating too much.
Yeah.
There's too much available food, and we just grab what's on the shelf, and we don't think about it. We just feed ourselves. You get home, and you're like, I feel like something, so you have something.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that before. Your ancestors, at least 3 or 4 generations ago, they didn't have anything in the larder. They would have to go out and hunt it, find it, grow it. Took a long time. It was painstaking. You couldn't just find something, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think we've gotten fat and lazy
Yeah.
as a human race.
Yep. Especially in
Um,
this country. Jesus. I went to the shops yesterday and I walked in there and they were just hundreds, not hundreds. There were at least 10 extremely large people in the shop. But like, I'm talking 3 times my size.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I suddenly thought, is this a particularly bad shop? And then I remembered, no, that is South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, unless you really have a genetic or disease or a thyroid problem or one of those, then you
I don't believe it. Even those things, your thyroid can't make fat out of air. You have to put things in.
Well, yeah, you've got to eat to get fat. I
Don't buy
suppose.
it. Anyway, the thing I was telling you about at the beginning with AI, Google's new artificial intelligence search feature is facing criticism for providing erratic, inaccurate answers. This is bound to happen because it's a machine. It doesn't have a rational brain. So it just takes all the data and sometimes puts together nonsense. Here, for example, its experimental AI overviews tool has had some users searching for how to make cheese stick to pizza better than. So people complain that the cheese doesn't stick to the pizza. So they ask Google, what can I do to make the cheese stick to the pizza? And Google says, use non-toxic glue. Like you should put glue on a pizza. See? The search engine's AI-generated responses have also said geologists recommend humans eat 1 rock per day. A Google spokesperson told the BBC they were isolated examples. Some of the answers appeared to be based on Reddit comments or articles written by satirical site The Onion. They have since been widely mocked on social media, but Google insisted the feature was generally working well. Just eat a rock and put some glue on your pizza every now and then. Great news.
Should we ask ChatGPT?
Go on.
Same question.
Do it.
Let's do it. Why not?
Go on. Live with George on ChatGPT.
How do I make cheese stick to pizza?
To make cheese stick to pizza, you can try using melted cheese as an adhesive. Here's a quick method. 1, take a slice of pizza with a good amount.
Nah.
I said cheese stick to pizza, not keys stick to pizza.
Got it? To make cheese stick to pizza, ensure that you have a good base of sauce and evenly spread shredded cheese over it. Bake the pizza at a high temperature, around 450 degrees Fair, 230 degrees, so the cheese melts and adheres well to the sauce and crust. Is there anything else you'd like to know about making pizza?
No, that's all right. Wow. Okay, that's quite a professional assistant you've got there.
Yeah,
I like it.
He does well. So
Okay, that's very
better
good.
than Google. To a
Very
certain
good.
degree.
No, I like it, George. Very good. Did you hear what the Prime Minister of Great Britain has suggested over the weekend as part of his election campaign? By the way, the saddest thing I've ever seen is Rishi Sunak walking out to announce that he's going to call an election. And the rain is falling, and he walks back, and his suit jacket is all wet, and it's sad, and it's pouring outside. No one gave him an umbrella. And it's just this sad man walking back with his hunched shoulders into Downing Street. Very, very depressing. But he did announce over the weekend, and I wonder what this is going to do, because this is going to cause huge trouble for him in certain quarters. He suggested that all 18-year-olds must either do military service for 12 months or give up their weekends to carry out civil duties. This is his plan. Now, I think this is a great plan, obviously, because most of the Brits, 18-year-old Brits I've ever met, are drunk or drug-addled or useless or lazy or rude or knife-wielding. So I would say this is an excellent thing that he suggested here. All 18-year-olds can serve in the military for 12 months or give up weekends to carry out civil duties. No more just doing what you want.
Well, I think the term civil servant has got lost, because if you choose a life of working for the government, you choose a life of service and servanthood, don't you?
Right. But this is ordinary citizens he's talking about.
Yeah, but this is teaching you something.
It's teaching you it's not all about you.
Yes. It's about society, and it's
Right.
about the economy, and you got to go to the society's service if you want to live in that society.
What do you think? This is good for Britain? If this happened, would it be a good thing?
I think there's good and bad there, Gareth, personally. It's having to force people to do things is inherently bad, because people will rebel.
Sure.
So you get that side.
Especially when they've been unused to it for like 2 generations.
Yes, people
Right,
will
like
rebel.
at least the last 2 generations of young people in Britain have just done exactly what they wanted and
But
nothing
there's
else.
something to be said about military. Is it called conscription?
Yeah.
There's something to be said about military conscription, and the discipline it teaches a human.
I just missed the last intake for conscription in South Africa.
So did I.
Yeah, so the 2 of us kind of got out scot-free. I often think, like, is there something missing in my life? Would it have helped me along? Would it have been a good experience for me? And I mean, I'm not good at taking instructions, and I'm not good at obeying rules. Like, I'm a natural rebel. And it might have beaten that out of me. Maybe I wouldn't have liked it to have beaten that out of me. I would have come out a very different person.
I don't know. You might have risen up the ranks of the military
Perhaps.
as a result.
Perhaps. I mean, I often think about the fact that every man in my family tree, going back as far as I can see, was in the military.
One of my
Every
friends,
single one.
His son wanted to go to the UK.
Mhm.
And the only way his son could get to go and live in the UK and have a job
Yep.
was to join the British Navy.
Right.
And so he missed it in South Africa. Well, his father missed it in South Africa. He obviously would have not gone to the military, but he's now chosen a life in the Navy.
So he likes it enough that he's done his couple of years, but now he wants to carry on.
Well, he's still busy with it now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as I was saying, every guy in the family tree, going back as far as I can tell, was in the military, and I'm the first one not to be. And it does feel like I've kind of dropped the ball somewhere. But I mean, it's not keeping me up at night, and I don't like the idea of being compelled to do anything.
The compelling part, yeah.
But I think that like Britain has really lost its way. It has become a completely jellyfish nation, especially young people.
The world become
the
that
world
way?
has, yeah, the world has. But I just think, you have a little bit of rigor and discipline in your life, and that's, I think, what the military service part of it provides. And even if it's civil service, frankly, it's doing things for other people that isn't all about you. Because my biggest problem isn't necessarily that we need to have people trained for fighting and wielding a weapon and marching in good time and any of that stuff. My concern is that people are totally self-absorbed.
It's so true.
And that they don't think of anybody but themselves. And you could see this in the behavior on the roads. You could see it in the way people are rude to each other.
You know
could
what
see
the
it on
military
social
teaches
media.
you is emotional regulation, because you can't act out.
Yeah, you get punished if you do.
Yeah.
And that teaches you to like control,
Regulate,
right?
control. Yeah. Should listen to a speech by a gentleman by the name of Admiral William McRaven. Have you ever heard his speech on making your bed? If you haven't, Google it. It just opens your eyes to
You've given us 3 books now to read. George, you're giving us a lot of homework.
A lot of homework.
See, this is why George knows so much. He reads a lot. Slippery Pickle says, no, Gareth, you mature faster with a bit of duty and responsibility. You're a student of history. Look at any young VC MOH recipient. Yes, of course. Absolutely. VC being the Victoria Cross MOH Medal of Honor. But I think there's a difference between being conscripted and wanting to serve in the military. I mean, I don't think outside of wartime that Britain's ever been a country of conscription. It was usually something that people did, especially second sons and those guys. They went into the military. But it teaches you to work as part of a whole, not an individual. We live in a society of narcissists. That's my point, Congo Chris. Spot on. You've articulated it better than I did. I wonder if they tried to do that here, how many people would just say, go to hell. Because it wouldn't happen here. And I wonder if they could even implement that in Britain. If people wouldn't just go, oh, fuck you, Richie Sunak. I'm going to join the army. Go to hell, you bastard. Imagine. I don't think they'd do it. I think you'd have a tough time trying to implement that. So it's fine to have the idea.
Yeah.
And of course, conservative voters, mostly older people, are going to say, yeah, we like that. But everybody on the other side is going to go, no, never. It's not going to happen. So you'll just end up with another fight, another argument, no winner. Nothing happens.
Parliamentary debates.
Yeah, and nothing will come of it. I don't know. Pie in the sky, maybe, but there we are. That's Rishi Sunak's plan. I don't know whether there's any chance at all that would be implemented. And then this is quite interesting. This is a story about. Do you know about Dogecoin? Do you care about that?
Well, I mean, it's just one of the cryptos, right?
So yeah, Kabosu, who's the dog in the Doge meme, has died after 14 years of internet fame. Her owners revealed this week. The Japanese Shiba Inu, that's the kind of dog they are, inspired a generation of online jokes, became the face of Dogecoin. She had been suffering from leukemia and liver disease, died on the 24th of May. So that's a bit sad, because even if you don't know what Dogecoin is, I'm sure you've seen the dog, right? It's that like Shiba Inu dog that's like looking like this. That's the best impression of a Shiba Inu I can do. But the picture later became an NFT digital artwork. It sold for $4 million and inspired the Dogecoin, which was started as a joke by 2 software engineers. It's now the 8th most valuable cryptocurrency with a market capitalization of guess how much? Guess. Pick a number.
100 billion US.
No, but close. 23 billion. Not even that close, actually. Dogecoin has been backed by Snoop Dogg, Kiss bassist Gene Simmons, and billionaire Elon Musk, who jokes about the currency on X sending its value soaring and hails it the people's crypto. That's pretty wild. 23 billion in market cap and a dog. Shame. What was it called? Kabosu.
I just Googled the dog. It's quite cute.
It is cute, right? Yeah. I think that's very sad. So after 14 years of internet fame, Kabosu is dead. So there we go, just in case anybody's wondering about that. Back to the comments for a second. There are a few countries that are not at war that have conscription, like Norway. Well, up to October the 7th last year, Israel was also not at war, and they conscript their people. Switzerland doesn't have conscription, but they have something called a militia, a well-armed militia. And in Switzerland, every canton, every man over a certain age has to learn to have a weapon and use a weapon, and you have to keep one.
Well, what's the best military in the world?
The citizens, the armed citizens.
The one you don't use.
Yeah. Well, yes, of course. It's like that old saying of it's better to have a gun and not need one than to need a gun and not have one, right? But that's quite interesting, I think, that there are countries that don't have war but have conscription. I suppose people learn things if they're in that military. You don't just learn about fighting and weapons.
No, it's not
all
about
kinds of other skills.
It's not about war.
What about if we looked at it as a skills transfer thing? Like you have people who go into a course in
you learn to survive,
changing tires and light bulbs and fixing the engine of a car. Then you and I could actually give advice to our friends who ask us for that kind of information rather than just lie to them. I think that could be quite an interesting thing to do. It's like a year of, I'd say, giving back, working, learning, and the government can pay you a small stipend for that. If we're paying people social grants for doing nothing,
pay them to add value.
It would be useful if we actually taught people to do things like maybe you could learn to fix potholes,
make your bed,
do very basic stuff, right? Because some people don't have any of these skills. Do you know who else died? That dude who did the Super Size Me documentary. Yes, I saw that over the weekend. You know the guy who did the Super Size documentary, and for a month,
McDonald's killed him.
Was it for a year or for a month? I think it was a whole year that he just ate McDonald's.
I'll Google it.
He died at 52 years old. But what a story. When I saw that, I was like, okay, don't do fast food every day. Not good for you.
30 days.
30 days. Wow. I don't think that was what killed him.
2003 now.
That was back in 2003. So it's taken a while. If that was, then that's a slow release poison.
Well, maybe he flipped to McDonald's.
Hey.
You never know.
Can I ask you about have you seen all this noise on the internet about microplastics?
Yes.
Are you worried about that?
I think it's real. I think microplastics are a problem. It's things that are so small that they can get through your cells is dangerous.
George, I thought about it the other day. I'm like, oh God, I hope I don't have microplastics all over. It really does worry me. I'm like, apparently it's in your brain, in your balls, in your muscles, everywhere. I don't want to think about it. That scares the hell out of me. If anybody in the comments knows a little bit more about this, because I was talking to Vinny Lingham when he was out here. We had dinner together and he was like, you can't eat this, you can't eat that. And he's very big on the microplastics. If you follow him on social media, you'll see a lot of this commentary from him. Very, very interesting stuff. And they are discovering that without knowing it, we've been absorbing these. Do you remember they used to have like stuff in your toothpaste that had like little beads. Remember?
Yes.
And we just went ahead with that. We were like, yeah, I'll just brush my teeth with this. It's fine. This is fine. Not so fine. Microplastics in seafood, absolutely. Remember when we put microplastics in body wash, skincare, everything? Yeah. Look, I don't think you're absorbing the microplastics when you're using a face scrub. I don't think. I mean, prove me wrong, but
It's when you
certainly I remember
consume
the
it.
toothpaste. And everyone's like, this is fine. I mean, what if we find out that that's the thing that, like, really, you know how they found out later on that the lead in the piping is one of the reasons that the Roman Empire eventually collapsed? Like, this is one of the reasons that the Roman Empire fell apart, is because the lead poisoned them over an extended period. And remember when we used to have mercury fillings? You used to put mercury amalgam into your fillings.
I've still got those silver fillings in my mouth.
That's mercury.
Yes.
Bad news for you.
So my dentist said to me, he says, we're going to take those out and replace them. So it's been in there for 40 years.
Yeah. We talk about heavy metals and how many people have heavy metals in their system too. I mean, mercury is a heavy metal. But the worry is, a lot of dentists have said, if you actually go and remove the mercury fillings, you open them up, right? And that could
cause problem.
Well, then you're kind of exposing yourself a second time to the actual mercury that might have been tucked away safely, not doing any damage.
I said to my dentist, you leave my fillings alone.
Yeah, I had mine replaced a while ago with ceramic ones.
Really?
Yeah.
I
don't know if I made the right decision. If I die like the Super Size Me guy in a couple of years' time, then you'll know why. It was definitely the mercury. All right, let's turn our attention to something which I've been talking about a little while into the show this morning, the 3 apples. And we're joined by somebody who I was actually lucky enough to go and spend quite a bit of time with this man 8 years ago. It's almost to the day, 8 years ago, that I was with Murray Legg in Silicon Valley. We did a little trip out there. He completed his PhD at 25, joined Rand Merchant Bank, and in the class of program in 2009, he left to start Retroviral, an award-winning digital agency with our friend Mike Sharman. After that, an influencer marketing platform called Webfluential. So he is no lazy bones. This guy is an overachiever, second to none. Murray, it's nice to see you. How are you?
So nice to see you again, Gareth. I can't believe
Murray,
how quickly
can you hear us?
8 years goes. I can. Yes.
Guys, I can't hear him. What's going on?
If you, I just switched the thing to the other one.
Oh,
Same thing was happening to me. And
okay, there we go. I can hear him now.
There we
Murray,
Okay,
how's it?
there we go.
There we are.
Good on
Sorry,
you.
it wasn't you, it was me.
That's all good. I can't
Nice
believe
to
how
see you,
quickly
man.
8 years goes by.
Yeah, how amazing is that? I saw a photograph. That's how I know. It came up in Facebook memories that I'd been to Silicon Valley with you. We visited Facebook, George. We visited Google.
Wow.
We met with all kinds of venture capitalists, got to have lectures from interesting people. In fact, as I recall, didn't you pitch your business in front of a whole bunch of tech investors?
I did. Yeah, that's how long we've been going at this dimension of influence and authenticity and commerce. So finally we get to talk about it 8 years later when it hits the mainstream.
We'll talk about that stuff in a little while, but I do want to discuss first your op-ed that you wrote about the 3 apples for just a second, because I think that's really interesting. We had a couple of people guessing earlier what those 3 apples were. Do you want to just tell us what happened that made you think about writing this?
I guess we have these conversations all the time, and people keep asking why. And, you know, for working in this industry for so long, I kind of took some time to step away and think, what is the reason that we could be, you know, so influenced by the things around us, and what is the thing that makes us really want to take on commerce in the way that we do?
Mm-hmm.
So that was the start of the op-ed. So I thought, let me put it down and see if we can get some mileage out of it. Okay, so did anyone guess what the apples were?
Yeah, in fact, a couple of people got it, but let's start with the first apple and we'll reveal the other 2 as we go. Adam and Eve, right? The Garden of Knowledge, and how knowledge has played such an important part in human history.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the root of it really is the temptation. And I mean, temptation can be broad bracketed, but the type of temptation that I was specifically thinking about was the temptation around reaching some kind of social acceptance. And you know, as social animals, we are all peacocking to some degree every day of the year. And that's that whether it's the things that we wear, the places that we go, the people that we associate with, you know, we are social seeking animals, and there's temptation in that. And how we reach that is a lot of the time through the expression of the physical goods that we purchase.
Yeah, I mean, George and I were talking earlier about personalization, and how everybody wants to personalize everything: their clothing, their car, their computer, their wallpaper on their phone. All of that stuff says something about you, and in some ways, it's also part of your peacocking. It's part of your developing influence, and you're competing with other humans, not just for attention and money, but also for love, for acceptance, for family, for belonging, for all of those things. Murray?
Yeah, absolutely. And and I think that, you know, whether we're conscious about it or not, it's one of the things that we do every day. So, you know, that's one underlying driver, is the seeking of social acceptance. And I think, you know, like we've seen so much of that move away from the physical world into the digital world. So, you know, whether you want to personalize your vehicle or the things around what you wear, there's now almost that social flex of the things that you show on your social pages, but it's also the things that you own digitally. I mean, there was that big wave in the metaverse of how you could show off your NFTs and, you know, what you wore in the metaverse. You know, because more people could see that supposedly than in real life.
What a waste of money that was. Now, I'm interested, and this is probably a good place to bring in Webfluential, because for a long time, and probably still, Webfluential is a way that people can calculate their market cap in terms of their following on social media. Tell me how you came up with that idea, and also the evolution of that business, and what's happened there over the last couple of years, because I think people will find this fascinating. We're all involved now. Everybody is on social media in some way, shape, or form, and it has a direct impact on how much play we have in the economy, right?
Everyone's got social capital, and that's what it boils down to. And if you want to think about it, like you rightly say, your market cap, what's your social capital worth, and how do you figure out the value of that, and then how do you monetize that? So we built Webfluential to be able to help people understand how much their community and their authentic communication could be worth, you know, just as a number. And then we went on to say, okay, now with brands, so brands want to have these authentic narratives as part of their communication strategy. They can't just all go and, you know, tweet and post about the fact that they are the best particular brand. They need some authentic validation around that. So who better to involve in that narrative than individuals who are living that brand? And then we made the connection. So much like an Airbnb connects hosts and guests, we connect creators and brands then are able to interact with these creators and build meaningful content. So the business has been, you know, fantastic to watch. And initially it started as a brand awareness channel. So, you know, people could talk about a particular event or a new brand that arrived in South Africa. I mean, we did sort of launches of Burger King and H&M in the country. And now it's moving towards the social commerce dimension, where people are becoming effectively storefronts, you know, in a digital sense. And, you know, who knows where this evolves to in the next 15 years.
So there may be people who are listening now who've never heard of Webfluential before, but you obviously have, George. And here in the comments, someone says, oh my God, Bitcoin Bot says, it sounds like social credit score. Just explain why it's different, Murray.
Yeah, it reminds us of that Netflix series. I can't remember the name of it. That's the one where you had to earn the social credits to get your spot at the country club.
And they do have something like that in China, right? I mean, they do keep track of everybody. Everybody's on camera wherever they go. If you don't have a sufficient social credit score, you can't get certain things, do certain things. It's already happening. It's like Orwell's worst nightmare.
100%. And the I guess it's different in that your social credit score isn't so much about your behavior in a setting. This is about your communications channel. So if you think about radio or TV as a channel, here people are a channel, and brands would pay to have access to the way that you speak and to the audience that you garner. If you're being inauthentic about that, then your audience is going to call you over the coals for it. Sure. But generally, you'll be able to have a trustworthy, authentic conversation with them, and that's where the brands want to participate.
Well, I mean, I got a quick question around influencers, but Webferential is a platform similar to AutoTrader. You're connecting a two-sided marketplace, and I often question this influencer world in relation to how diluted your message can get, because that influencer may or may not resonate with your brand. How do you get around that? Somebody like Black Coffee, for instance, using him as an influencer for AutoTrader's brand. How do you get around that? Black Coffee might never have visited AutoTrader.
Yeah. So there's obviously a research and a strategy dimension that goes into that work. So you can't just get any old person to talk about your particular brand. They need to be invested in the industry. And if you think about brands, they're a support system or a means to an end to express or to deliver on a certain service, whether it's saving you time or making you money. That's typically what they're able to do, in addition to the social dimension. So you'll have people, in the AutoTrader world, there will be people who are absolutely obsessed with motoring, and all of their social content will be around the latest release and the restoration of cars and whatever it is. And those are the people who have the audience that are fascinated by that particular genre, and those are the people to engage with. You can't exactly have say for instance a cosmetics individual talking about cars, unless you've got a very strong strategy that says this is how we're going to relate one topic to another. So you could play with that one, but sometimes that gets a bit shaky.
Like you imagine the car brand with the best passenger mirror in the visor for people to put on their makeup. It is a fascinating idea, and I know that you've started many different businesses and you've come up with lots of different ideas over the time. But I do want to move on to the second apple in your article, because that's also an interesting thing to discuss. So that was Newton's apple, right?
You got it. And maybe this was a little bit more sciencey and a bit more for the nerds, but obviously the apple fell on Newton's head, and then he wondered, why did that happen? And the science behind that is that there's a gravitational force between any two objects. The one that we're aware of is gravity.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at the moon. The moon has a gravitational force on the Earth, and that's why we have the tides. But even two individuals have a gravitational force on each other, and that gets stronger the closer those objects are to each other. And that's the apple that we're talking about. So apple leading to Newton's law of gravitational attraction. So how are we attracted to a particular community, a particular interest group, and how do we want to express ourselves in a way that we can then say we are one with that particular group? And that's another pull factor, if you want to call it that, in the gravitational sense, towards this dimension of commerce. So we're being driven to buy things so we can express ourselves as having a sense of belonging to a particular community.
Such an interesting idea to bring all these apples together, because most people, when you say Apple, will just think of the company. It's the world's most valuable brand. I think by a long way, they've got the most cash that any company's ever had. GDP of most countries is outperformed by Apple in terms of their annual turnover. In fact, the annual profit in very many situations bigger than the GDP of most countries. So that one is the most obvious, and I think people would have guessed that one first, even though the Adam and Eve apple's been around in our stories for, I don't know, probably forever. So why did you include the company?
I guess it's the segue into the iPhone, and that's that window into the rest of the world that we hold in our hands every day. And that window tells us, what's trending, what's not, what are the conversations about. Where are people, being having that sense of belonging, where they're aggregating, and so that's the Apple that enables us to have a sense of belonging to communities, not just locally in person, but also internationally, where we might share these interest groups. If it is motoring, we could fascinate and learn about that in another country, and it's really broken down those barriers. And in the same way that it relates to commerce, we should maybe talk about the way that we always used to shop and the way that we shop now. But COVID probably pulled that ahead a lot quicker than it was going to happen. But because of our phone, we can, it's broken down all those barriers, all of the logistical supply chain, retail storefronts, rental in a particular mall. Those are all gone now, and we can use our phone. And Amazon's recently launched, but I'm sure we've all tried Temu and Shein. But we're really buying these things straight from the supplier in some part of China and being flown and delivered to us a few days later. So it's physically transcended all of those challenges. The phone has really allowed us to open us to do anything internationally.
It's so funny. I actually tried Temu for the first time the other day as an experiment, because we were talking about it on the show, and I thought, let me see if these guys can actually deliver, and if I get like Hong Kong stuff, or if it's what as advertised, So we'll see. The jury's still out on that, but it's interesting that you brought that up now. Did you see Apple's ad, by the way, the one that got them so much kickback and pushback?
About the
Did you see it?
Press.
Yeah, the press crushing all of human creativity into a thin little iPad.
They actually apologized.
Yeah, they did have to apologize because it was really, really bad. I wondered why they didn't just think to rather squeeze all of those things into like a little thing that they could then push into the iPad, but to crush and destroy them. It was just such an ugly, and I do think either of you, because you're both quite forward-thinking, futuristic sort of people, do you think that we're going to reach a point where humans are actually going to rebel against technology? Because so far, every piece of technological advancement that's come our way, we've embraced, right? And we've thought, this is great, we've got to use this. George talks to his chat GPT on the way to work rather than listening to music or podcasts now. And I think there might be a bit of a pushback eventually. If it doesn't happen now, it'll happen at some point between now and, the next generation reaching maturity.
Well, it has to happen before the singularity, before we merge with computers. Because I think once that happens, it's downhill from there.
You can't change your mind after that.
No.
What do you think, Murray?
Yeah, we're all threatened by these things. I watched a Adobe Firefly example last night where they were kind of drawing on a Microsoft Paint type of interface, and then on the side it's got the computer rendering, with a description or a prompt next to it, and it's unbelievable how it just outclasses the human. And so we have every right to feel threatened that it's going to take pretty much all of our jobs and capabilities. But your reference on that advert from Apple, it was effectively dehumanizing, because it took all the creativity that humans represent and squashed that into what computers can do. And it's tending that way. So there's a bit of a reality to it, and that's probably what got people uptight about it. But I'm sure there's going to be reasons to rebel. Tim Ferriss talks about having these mini vacations away from things, particularly digitally connected. So taking time off of these, because you don't know how they're affecting you until you remove them. So the world's going to definitely use robotics and AI and all of these things, but it's how we choose to interact with them. It's going to be an evolving, interesting story for sure.
What I really liked about the article too is that you used all kinds of very, very cool, clever little metaphors: low-hanging fruit, forbidden fruit. Those are the kinds of things that really appeal to me. People write like that very seldom these days. So I like that. But do you think we're living in an era of low-hanging fruit, of like just outrageous consumerism, instant gratification, takeaway? What is it? Conspicuous consumerism, all of that stuff. Do you think that that's bad and that we need to stop it in its tracks, or do you think it's just going to carry on accelerating?
Yo, it's a big question. I mean, if you look at the loneliness with all of these digitally connected dimensions, we've got every reason to feel connected, but actually, the studies show that humans are so lonely.
Yeah.
And I guess there will be a response to trying to address that loneliness by trying to fill up that feeling of emptiness with stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we look at America and we see just how much that's happened. And so I guess there's definitely that as a driver. Then there's the driver, which is what the article talked about, which was social acceptance. And because it's so easy to buy anything. You don't have to, there were certain brands that didn't come to South Africa, say, and you needed to get a mule when they flew overseas to bring it to you. That doesn't happen anymore. And then how are we going to feel human? How are we going to feel connected? And it is a worry that we are going to fall into this trap of just buying and buying and buying. I mean, how many people that are listening have these abandoned carts or carts on certain e-commerce sites that you've got these things in that you wish you could buy, but you don't have the money for. Your demand for
wish list.
Oh, really? Do you have a wish list? Is it miles and miles long?
It's long.
Wow. Okay. What do you think of all that, George? This conspicuous consumerism.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point consumers will normalize and get recalibrate, get back out into the physical world. I don't think digital will go away, and I don't think it'll be this rebellion. When you asked the question, I asked ChatGPT how ChatGPT feels about a digital rebellion, and this was the answer. In summary, while a rebellion against digital technology could pose challenges, it offers opportunities for positive change and innovation, positively trying to argue for itself.
Okay, so it's already developing some kind of sentience then, if you ask me, like looking for its own way out. Melissa said, you know what the biggest problem with pushing all this AI stuff is? It's the wrong direction. I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing. But it is amazing how this AI stuff is taking over in creative professions and dimensions as well, right? I mean, all the things that we thought, oh no, only humans will be able to do this. Turns out that's nonsense.
The biggest thing for me in how it's going to be really effective is in the education space. I mean, if you think about how much need there is for supportive education in Africa, now you've got a free ChatGPT Omni, which you can engage. And it's effectively your tutor. It's your dedicated teacher that, the more the time goes by, the more you've interacted with it, the more it learns about the way that you enjoy interacting and the way that you think. And I mean, it really can support every young learner that's out there and help them through their education. It's going to also put into question what we need to learn at school and how we can leverage these technologies to answer questions for us when we don't need to do them. So what is the purpose of school? And maybe it's very much more around that more human element, the more social and empathetic element, and less around the maths and science. Gareth, I'm sure you heard recently Peter Thiel was talking about the impact of this in the professional space. But he said the people that are able to speak are the people that will succeed. The people that can do maths and science, less so. So
that's a scary thought, because we always thought exactly the opposite was true. It's the people who could work with the numbers, who could do the experiments, who could figure out the new things. But AI is going to do that better than us. Right? AI is already doing that better than us. What's going to be exciting is once the AI starts teaching a future version of itself, and the future version of itself doesn't rely on the human inputs. It can go straight to the machine inputs. Then we're going to have something that evolves very fast.
Well, I mean, I think for AI, it's difficult to provide the one thing that humans are, I don't know how many humans are good at it, but is leadership.
Oh, yeah.
That cognitive reasoning with multiple inputs that brings, I can almost feel you in the room. AI can't do that.
No.
Whereas maths and science is a very specific and calculable way to see the world. But leadership is something that
it's numinous. It's difficult to pin down.
Yes.
I've got to ask you a couple of things before we let you go, Murray, because I haven't seen you in such a long time. How do you think influence is going to change? And do you think privacy and having no social media, no data, no digital media footprint might become the thing that everybody wants? I already know lots of very, very rich people who do their best to scrub themselves from the internet wherever they can. Do you think that's a thing?
I guess if everybody does it, then it could be a thing. I think the likelihood that everybody does it is slim. So it's the way that we are influenced that's going to be a work in progress all the time. But I mean, we just talk about things, and I'm sure, you know, now that we've talked about the things that we have, our phones have been listening to us, and we're going to be served certain ads on Temu. So we're directly being influenced by this, and it's hard to get yourself out of it. You know, you think that it's that Jonathan Haidt's book, The Elephant and the Rider, where people think that they're in control of their mind and that they're in control of their actions. And the argument is that you're not. You're absolutely at the mercy of your environment and the circumstances around you, and everything is justified after the fact. So it's the same with influence and the way that we govern the way that we go through our lives. We think that we could maybe slip out of the tackle, but actually it's gonna be there, and we are just at the mercy of these engines that largely are going to affect what we talk about and what we buy. So influence is something, you know, I don't think it goes away. Your points around the market cap of people, I think maybe it's sentient, you know, artificial influences that end up being the things that influence us. Maybe that's the thing, but influence doesn't go away, because, you know, we're part of a community and we're part of a worldwide race that's moving ahead. So I don't know how to get out of that one.
What do you think?
You know, is it new, or has it always existed? I think it's always existed. It's just the number of things that influence you have just exponentially increased. So if you think 1,000 years ago, you might have been influenced by a handful of things, the people close to you. If you rode a horse for 5 days.
Well, they said most people never left within 5 miles of where they were born.
Exactly.
You know, up to about 100 years ago.
So now it's the same thing, just at an exponential rate, especially because of this thing.
Yeah, I think, and things like Webfluential that Murray started. But it is amazing to me that we're able to put so many other inputs in to calculate that social capital, right? There are always going to be some things, I think both of you will agree with me on this, that are going to be very difficult to pin down in terms of actual value. Like you could say someone has, you know, 1 million followers or whatever, but they might have some eccentricity, something that just doesn't fit the algorithm that actually is the reason that people follow them. Something that's completely random and has something to do with nature rather than nurture, maybe, that makes people interesting. It's like they say, face asymmetry is the reason that you find someone attractive. It's not that they have perfectly symmetrical faces. There's some aspect of their face that makes them interesting to you because it's just a little off center.
Yeah, so interesting. And I guess, you know, George, to your point around how this evolves is, I mean, I would reckon that, you know, the time of us going to Takealot or to these vertical marketplaces to go and discover things and to purchase them actually changes to where what they call headless commerce, where it's part of your social feed. So you will say, these are some decals that you can buy for this particular vehicle, and you know, click the link in bio or tap the post to have them delivered. And you know, it's got your credit card loaded, it's got your delivery address loaded, and you just tapped it and then it was sent to you. So I think people become the conduit. So, you know, whether it's the attendants in the old Edgars, you know, they learned the lesson the hard way. But those are the people that now are going to be talking about their cosmetics in a digital setting, and you know, with a tap or two, you'll have those delivered to your house because you've got the lesson on how to use them, and now they're delivered to you. So I think it evolves that way.
I think it's fantastic. Listen, I couldn't have imagined a better way to spend my Monday morning than with you two talking about all of these amazing and exciting things. Thank you very much, Murray. Nice to see you, man. And I hope we'll get together again soon. It's been a long time.
Super. Yeah. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. And keep
great to
writing
meet you as well,
interesting
George.
stuff like you just did. Love it.
Thank
Very
you.
cool.
Cheers, mate.
George, thank you very much. What a
Thank you,
fun
Gareth.
way to spend the day.
Yep.
And I hope
enjoyed
your
it
Monday
thoroughly.
gets better from here.
I haven't left my house in the dark in a very long time. This morning,
Sorry
I
to
did.
do that to you, but that's good.
It's very good.
Gets you up and at 'em. All right. Thanks, everybody. I do see this. This is quite funny from Melissa. She put, obviously, she went into Chat GPT and asked her to write a poem. Gareth and George in a huddle confessed, elections give us both so much stress. And Gareth did mention 3 apples, contention, while AI search errors caused quite a mess.
Love it.
It's a good summary. We will see you on, oh no, we won't see you on Wednesday because it's election day. So we will see you again on Friday.
Go vote.
But we will have a Burning Platform special on the podcast party. So keep an eye out for that. We'll make sure we post everything on social media. And otherwise, have an excellent week and go and vote. Don't forget, don't be lazy. Don't not vote.
Vote, vote, vote.
There we go.